Hey there, friends, family, and loved ones all. I want to get into this action item called post-genderism, the idea to basically eliminate the female and blend into the male. And this has been going on. This has been setting up for quite some time, and this is also why the whole abortion thing is coming up now and whatnot. And also why we need to be aware, you very much need to be aware that in the you-know-whats, oh, they'll delete me, in the you-know-whats, they have taken out the X chromosome. All right, this is all part of their sick F game they're playing, and they're attacking the feminine divine. So is this going to be the rise of the feminine divine, or is this going to be post-genderism as the New World Order has declared and as they're implementing as we speak? This is all the gender bending. This is the reason for all this chaos I'm going to explain. And I'm going to be reading from this excellent book by Aaron Franz on the age of transitions. And his book is, these are posts he does, and I highly recommend this website. And then he's got in his store this book, which I'm going to be reading from, called Revolve, Man's Scientific Rise to Godhood by Aaron Franz. And he wrote this in 2012. So let's just start out with some common terms. So one of them we call is a lady. So what is the etymology of the root word of lady? Old English, a mistress of a household, apparently literally one who needs bread. Maker of dough. All right? And then what about woman? What does woman mean? Literally, woman, man, woe, man, with man, wife, wife, man, is a female servant. So a woman is, by definition of the origins of the word of woe, man, is a female servant. And when they have to pay a fee, they're a female. And so literally the etymology of the word female, young female girl, is a woman, a female, literally she who suckles, to suck. To suck. Female means to suck in etymology. Then the thesaurus, you'd start looking up the words for the feminine: womanish, girly, effeminate, sissified, sissy, ultra feminine. Those are antonyms. But again, you see all these words that are just diminutive of the lady or the girl. And also babe. How many songs are, I love you, baby, because they're putting women into the babe. Love you, babe. They're making women into babes because they're babies. That's how they diminutize you, by calling you little babies. Hey, I got you, babe. All the songs, I got you, babe. And then all the promiscuity we'll get into later. And then words related to boot. Hey, babe. Boot, amateur, dabbler, dilettante, learner, student, trainee, candidate, entrant, probationer. All right, so again, diminutive, bambino, child, infant, it's diminutive of the feminine divine, and it doesn't stop there. And then you look up the root of the female, and it's babe, beauty, damsel, doll, gal, girl, lass, lassie, mademoiselle, maid, maiden, miss, senorita, they missed. You know, all these words, and then we use the debasing even more of the feminine. We see even from the Bible, of one Bible of many, the Bible, the Immaculate Conception, there was no female required. Hey, women didn't have to be there. Woe man. Adam's cut, cheaper cut. Women's made from a cheaper cut. The woe man is made from a cheaper cut. Eve eats the apple and ruins it for all of mankind. The girl ruined it for the boy. And then we had a beautiful moon calendar. It was 28 days of the month times 13. It worked on the back, it showed on the back of the turtle. The feminine divine calendar worked perfectly. 364 days and 1 day of freedom. And then what did the Roman Catholics do? They come up with the Gregorian calendar and bury the feminine perfect calendar. 28 days a month, 13 months. And then they made it up 365 and 1/4 day, except for a leap year every 5 years, because trust the science. All right, nuns are nuns. I mean, all the feminine debasing. Any ladies going to be any popes anytime soon? I don't think so. And then what's a marriage? I'll get a little fun one here too, because they debase the women in this. So how is a wedding an equestrian event? So marriage, you get it? You choose not to elope, and you go and get hitched. Hey. And then they got to clean her up, so they bridle her with a bridal shower to clean her up, to beride her, and then they alter her with a halter as they take her down the altar after briding her and reining her in with the ring. And then once the groom weds her with the ring, he rides her to the neighborhood until she becomes an old hag and a nightmare and must be put out to pasture after being wed by the pastor. How many of you put that one together? So the Bible, written by King James, who also wrote the book on demonology 10, 15 years before that. How many Christians know that? King James Demonology, look it up. Sir Francis Bacon, final edited, founder of Freemasonry of King James Bible. Little sidebar here. Also debasing the feminine divine. Also making the lady into something less than. And that's a common theme in our language that we use today. Parent, pa. It's not merit, it's paternal. Merit. And look at these others here. And try using the word, talking to a lady or a girl or the feminine divine without the word man or he in it. Try that. Female. You have to pay a fee for the female. Remember, I used to testify in court, you grabbed your testicles because only males could testify in court. And the whoa man. And then the manual, and then the word she. Root word is he, for all mankind, not for ladykind, not for the feminine divine, the human, the person, his story. We need her story now. Man edge, man age, mandatory. Even romance has the man as the principal center character. Where is the feminine divine? Emancipation, proclamation, manipulate. How about menstrual period, manuscript, free man? All these words are of the male principle, base archetype. Mani, mango, manner, manners, manufacture, manager, mansion, mandate, manifest, mankind, manipulate, manicure, even manpower, man-whole, man-made, mankind. All of it. The male principle while debasing the feminine divine. And the El principle, Elohim, the God of gods, electric, elderly, elite, element, Bible, elope, all male principle. We have to make this age of transition now to the feminine divine, the Magdalena, the magnificent, the maternal, the magnificent, the master, the magnetic, the laws of attraction. So just a sidebar here, electricity transfers energy and magnetism creates energy. 3 different fields. That's why they hide magnetricity, because they don't want the feminine divine of the creation of energy, and the feminine divine also is the only creator of life. The male cannot create life. But this is what's getting into this age of transition, so this is the setup for this book I want to read from. All right, so reading from Aaron Fran's Age of Transitions, page 172. In our ancient past, religious and spiritual roles were filled by women. If these rules that monopolize men commandeer, it is these roles that monopoly men have commandeered. Long ago, they removed women from their human power dynamic. They donned female garb robes and begun preaching the, quote, word of God. God came to be known as the Father. Over time, this became completely normalized. Throughout the world, the idea of the holy man is common, but holy women, not so much. This is evidence of a profound problem. We need to realize that men and women are indeed different, but that's not a bad thing. It is in an unnatural state for us all. All our natural roles have been stolen from us, and in their place, a completely artificial form of life has been crafted. Women hold the sacred distinction of being the bearers of our children. For obvious reasons, this has always been a profoundly important aspect of life. It is the female gender that has always held the great power and all the secondary powers that come with it. Could it be that control freaks have long been greedy on the biological power to take that away from the women? Because of this, they have traditionally been given sacred roles because of their feminine creation, which have protected the human family in a uniquely feminine way. They are our lost spiritual leaders. It is because of the unbalanced male-dominated system we are in today that most people now view any sort of spiritual concepts as ludicrous. Over a long period of time, male-dominated spirituality has led to the ultimate conclusion. This has been perfected by androgynous man of the Western occult tradition, which is a self-perpetuating model of the male dominance. One real illustration of this phenomenon is seen at the all-male summer camp for the elite Bohemian Grove. One of the many examples of their phallic self-worship is seen by their stage plays. Due to a complete absence of women at the Grove, even amongst the staff, the men have to use their imaginations. During these rituals to Dionysus, the men play both male and female roles. This shows what power-grabbing men have done for thousands of years. Women have been pushed out of the power equation. During the Grove's festivities, there are frequent derogatory comments made about real women. There's no girls allowed. It seems so juvenile, but when you realize these men are and what they do, a whole new level of reality sets in. These are the men who run the world, and it's no surprise that male prostitutes are brought into the party in bulk. It is no secret that women have been marginalized in this world, but the big picture remains elusive to most people. The very true foundation of females has been hidden. The radical leaders working within the women's liberation movement that have many times turned out to be carbon copies of power-hungry males. And Gloria Steinem, if you remember back then, she was a CIA operative. Their message has been one of equality, but again, this equality is mere uniformity. The Judith brothers, butlers of the world, or the controllers, have wanted women to become men. They are ironically acting in a male way. Just Serena Williams comes to mind right away. They have been driven by the same greed that drives the men of Bohemian Grove. They want a female-dominant society, but not a solution. The matriarchal paradise would be just as imbalanced and patriarchal. If given up, our male-dominated system could actually be taken to its absolute limits. Women would become physically obsolete. Don't think for a second that this idea does not excite the monopoly men. They drool over it. The ability to create life by themselves would enable them to destroy women once and for all. This actually represents the scientific completion of the ancient work, and it has been happening right under our noses. The will of God, quote, also known as the Father, is overcoming Mother Nature. The will of God, the men of men, will be overcoming Mother Nature. The artificial womb is coming. It has been, in fact, in the works for a long time. Radicalized feminists were but one faction of shock troops sent out to pave the way for its acceptance. And the male-dominated society has been entraining ladies in the feminine divine to be servants. Remember what I showed you the definition is to serve. And here's back an ad from the 50s telling women they must be subservient to their males and showing them how to do that. Get to the door wearing nothing but a cellophane wrap. Totally debasing the feminine divine and nature, nurture, mother. Then women, because they're told they're not good enough from birth, and they got all these perfect models at every checkout stand, and so every time a young lady, a young girl sees an image, she's not good enough if she doesn't fit that image, and then to make her fit that image, we got to make up. Think about the word make up. I'm going to go put on my make up. Why are you putting on your makeup? What are you making up to be? You don't like who you are? Absolutely, I don't like who I am. And you'll like me better if I put in all these chemicals in here, okay? That disrupts my immune system, linked to cancer, hormonal disruption, linked to cancer, neurological damage. Why do they think they call it dye? Why is the hair called dye? Because they're killing your synapses in your brain. Do you know why they pull your wisdom teeth out all the time? When there's not enough room in your mouth, there's not enough room, because it's connected to your pineal gland, your consciousness, your third eye of spiritual awakening. So they remove your wisdom teeth. That's why they really do it. And again, the pink and the blue, all of these things because you have to make up because you're not good enough. And ladies, please, if you're using chemicals, please stop. Love yourself for yourself. If men will love you, they'll love you for you, not who you're making up to be, because once the makeup comes off, and you all know exactly what I'm talking about. So in my free book, and I'll get into the what they're planning to do with AI babies, incubator embryos, AI in a minute here, but the transhuman agenda, this is from my book, Nothing is True, Everything is a Lie, 21 critical subjects few know anything about. And on chapter 1, I get the transhumanist agenda, also binary transhumanist clones, and transhumans here. So this is the game they're trying to do, is the quest for immortality, to turn everybody into avatars, the project known as Avatar, a transhuman blockchain, every head in the cloud, everybody controlled, and I've covered this before in previous videos. But the whole game is this transhumanist X by taking the future of humans and put them into artificial conscripts of their control, of their ownership. And they made movies about it, many movies about doing this, and it's being implemented in what they call the singularity, or the hive mind. By the time we get to 2040, multiply human intelligence a billionfold. So they're going to make everybody tap into everybody's brains as computers and connect it to what they call the beehive, which we'll get into a little bit more here. But this is the Internet of Bodies, the transhumanist agenda, which they are promoting. Emerging technologies, hypothetical, science, utopia, again the utopia, as their Internet of Bodies is connected to everything else. And then this gets into the post-genderism, which I'm going to cover here in a second and go through. So post-genderism, radical potential ability, so they choose to both carry a pregnancy to term and father a child at the same time. Again, merging the Word of God with nature, and dominating nature, as they've been doing for a long time. And this is why you're seeing all this gender bending going on, and she-males and females and trannies and whatever. And then you had the Attorney General on TV, right before she was appointed Attorney General, asking what a woman is. She goes, no, I can't. I mean, the theater of the absurd. But this is for reasons they're doing this. This is why the spermicide counts, and all the corn syrups and spermicide, Monsanto bought Epicide. This is why male productivity of sperm is going down as well. Like I showed you, they're getting rid of the X chromosome and then making a mockery of it. Here's the Assistant Health Secretary of the United States. I mean, give me a break, folks. They're just mocking us, and most people can't even see it. And then please read my chapter on Backs to a Spiritual Death. Okay, let's get back to his book. And this is chapter 8, Post-Genderism, page 155. So one of the strangest ideas within the transhuman movement is the post-genderism. Becoming post-gender, one could merge both male and female traits to achieve gender singularity within the self. As for all those pesky technical questions, everything is to be reshaped by scientific, quote, logic and reason. Reproduction is to be done in the lab with the assistance of the artificial womb. The post-humans don't opt for silicon. If the post-humans don't opt for silicon bodies, life eternal. Both the male and female relationships would no longer be of any practical necessity. The male and female relationship would no longer be of any practical necessity. The nature of sexuality would become completely psychological. Sexuality would be done away with totally in favor of new forms of bliss. Metaverse. In a desexed environment, acquisition of pleasure becomes another practical engineering task. You'll be happy and own nothing. This is what they're talking about. Because there will be no shortage of pleasure in the post-human world. The transhumanists are sure to make this point very, very clear. The whole transhumanism ideology is based upon a strange notion of liberation, that we are somehow trapped within our bodies, we deserve better, humanity is a pathetic lot, and in order to break the ties that we all have now, we must be transformed into transhumans. So if you can make your body perform better through technologically artificial intelligence, should you? And we've been doing this a long time. Just, you get a heart stent or anything put in your body. That's transhumanism, and that's not natural. And then I covered the wide use of cosmetic surgeries as another example of unsettling kind of self-loathing behavior. I don't like myself. Make my boobs better. I need eyes. I need Botox. I'm getting too old. Let me fix that with Botox. Can't tell you how many people I've had to clear through with the biomagnetism from women with breast issues, from having breast augmentations decades earlier, now having super big problems with it, and also from Botox. Don't do it. Look what's in the ingredients of Botox before you inject it in your body, please. More than collagen. All right, but he's saying this is nothing compared to what is to come. Ultimately, we are being led to not only accept, but to crave the complete destruction of our biology in favor of something more appealing. Something new and something more intelligent, they're telling us. We will all be put through some form of mass bonding ritual in which we'll learn from it. Natural fear of change will be confronted, and the ultimate outcomes that we all may improve our lives with various upgrades will be made very appealing. Now is when the final barriers of humanity are being psychologically, sociologically, and even biologically removed. In this day and age, anything goes. All taboos are being broken so that the new man can emerge, and the feminine will be destroyed. Within the mysteries, males come to symbolize the unseen God, the spirit aspect of creation, whereas the female has been used to symbolize the physical material world itself. Creation requires both male and female to be effective. However, if this duality somehow is to be reduced to a singularity, then wouldn't it be more immaculate? This is how the oneness of the mysteries is achieved. So their interpretation of this mystery tradition has been used to gain control of the physical world and everything in it. Understand this, and you'll better understand what the transhuman agenda is all about. We are hearing transhumanists boast about the upcoming creation of gods. These gods will be both male and female aspects perfected within a single form. They'll have the total power of creation scientifically reduced to a singularity. This is the ancient esoteric meaning behind the modern post-gender ideal and post-genderism. And they've been prepping this to us for a very long time. Remember Mary Manson? It's a guy who came up with a popular album in 1998, Mechanical Animals, that illustrates post-genderism and transhumanism. His 7th track is entitled Posthuman. This is, again, 1998, folks. This is one of the strongest references to transhumanism. He identifies himself as post-gender, as posing as androgynous character, the Omega, on the cover of the album. But the character has familiar female anatomy. Omega has the breasts of a female, which are lacking nipples. This, combined with the fact that Omega's crotch is rounded off, suggests this is a sexual neuter and an androgynous. Practically speaking, these body parts would be useless in creating and sustaining life. So Omega was seen on the cover art of his album, in a music video, and at the award show. They made sure to make it prominent and present, not to mention the countless clip shows of Manson's music. Omega is the last letter of the Latin alphabet and an ancient symbol of finality. The alpha is the beginning, Omega is the end. Manson's character, Omega, represents the end of human life itself. 1998. And then he came out as the Antichrist superstar and outspoken Satanist as well. So she, promoter of in the video interview done in the early stages of the career, he had this to say, I'm about power to the strong, F the weak, a combination of two extremes, positive and negatives, the Galilean dialect. He continues, Marilyn Monroe, Charles Manson, transcending morality and sexuality, no Brownies, gray area, that's us. Beyond good and evil, my friend. He goes on, Nietzsche, Einstein, LaVey, Satan, and the dialogue rolls off. So by exploiting the method, the controllers, they guide people's actions. Good and evil is designed for mass consumption. All the while, the elect stand above it with all their unified philosophy. The rulers make the rule. That's why they call them rulers, and they measure us, and they exist above the law, sitting in their ivory towers, and that's how they measure us. A God yields nothing beyond its own will. These bohemian gods exercise their highest form of willpower, which is the complete opposite of the version that they give to the public. Do you think that Manson and company could be initiates of some secret sect of the mysteries? Abso-frickin-lutely. So then Mr. Franz goes on to cite the Institute for Ethics and Emerging Technologies. This is in 2008, Post-Genderism Beyond the Gender Binary, along with Dr. James Hughes and George Tversky, two known figures in the transhumanist movement. They have a spiritual side. They've started projects, Cyborg Buddha Project, Trans-Spirit List. So we are seemingly more tolerant today than before, but the simple fact is the androgynous gods have long ruled over the divided population. This is from the paper. Gender variant people in traditional cultures often molded themselves as androgynous divinities or formed special cults to legitimize their gender variance. Male devotees of the Roman cult of Cybele castrated themselves to become a third sex, Gali. Also, enlightenment. Today, our enlightenment values and emergent human potentials have come into conflict with rigid gender binary. Post-genderists contend the dyadic gender roles and sexual dimorphisms are generally to be detriment of individuals and society. Assisted reproduction will make it possible for individuals of any sex to reproduce in any combinations they choose, with or without mothers, with or without fathers, in artificial wombs that will make biological wombs unnecessary for reproduction. This is the IIET, a government-funded organization, folks. And this document also describes many radical feminist and post-gender labels, such as cyber-feminism, techno-feminism. See, they're always controlling the narrative, so even if you try and claim your femininity back. So in 1970, Shulamith Firestone wrote, "The heart of women's oppression is her childbearing and childbearing roles. To assure the elimination of sexual classes requires the revolt of the underclass women and seizure of control of reproduction. So the end goal of the feminist revolution must be unlike that of the first feminist movement, not the elimination of male privilege, but of the sexual distinction itself. General differences between human beings would no longer matter," making ladies a tool. So the biological gender and heterosexual desires, the IET paper points out, but the only blurring and erosion of biological sex of the gendering of the brain and the binary social roles by emerging technologies will enable individuals to access all human potentials and experiences regardless of their born sex or assumed gender. If someone is biologically and neurologically wired to be a male, then they will act accordingly. However, if there is a way to alter hormones and actual brain function, then a man could become more feminine. This is the idea, to totally break down what it means to be a male or a female. Fun times ahead, huh? And I don't mean to put this up to be controversial, but because of if you watch the Freedom to Fascism movie with Aaron Russo, he talks about how the Rockefellers got the women out of the home to get there into the male workplace and to turn them into men, and they have to compete. They have to be physical. They have to work in the workplace rather than being home with their babies, which they created. And this is all part of it. And this is why you see so many women calling men narcissists, yet they post their pictures 100 times more than men, but the men are the narcissists. And again, it's very confusing to be a lady these days because there's no role models for them to be. And also, as we get into the men have been debased, demasculated big time as well. All right, so further from this book, what is really disturbing about this proposed gender, this page 168, project, its relationship with the actual sociological trends. It mentions the fact that police, government, and weapons have reduced the need for typically strong and aggressive males. The strength of technology itself is actually doing away with the need for the male. According to Hughes and Dvorsky, the social change is good and now being complemented and completed by technological means. The big secret here is that this is all part of one large work, the great plan, the great opus. And exactly what they are mentioning. The hard fact that most people cannot come to terms with is that our very lives are the subject of a massive science project. We are being putrefied and sublimated. Our male and female genitals are to be blended, both philosophically and physically. The protective role of the man has been reduced on purpose. It is the job of the men to protect their tribe. This crucial aspect of human life has been socially reduced for a reason. We're slowly being led into a world in which everything is provided by the government. True that. If the techno-progressive project continues further, we'll eventually end up in a complete nanny state. This is the truth behind the egalitarian world utopia we've heard so much about from the politicians, academics, World Economic Forum, yada yada. Both male and female strengths have been targeted for destruction. Not only have our gender roles been confused, we have actually been chemically bombarded. Yes, the IET paper even mentions the chemical attack. Quote, "The instance of intersexuality is disputed, and it may be more prevalent than before due to environmental chemicals that mimic estrogen and interfere with fetal genital development." What are we talking about? BPA. So Dr. Hughes said, when asked about it, referred pseudoestrogens and endocrine disruptors, specifically phthalates from plastics. So the BPA phthalates have been presented in every food and water packaging for a long time, but they could be using other plastics, folks, that they don't need to use the BPA, but they haven't been. So this is another transhumans follow model that appeals to our self-doubt, the model, you are broken, but we can fix you. That's why they have pharmacology. Word of pharmaceutical is harm. Word of pill is ill. and then they drug you. Why is there a drugstore in every corner, but taking drugs is bad? Why do they let you drive, drive and tell you not to drink and drive, yet they sell beer and wine in every gas station? The post-gender angle is something that even the most ardent critics of the medical industry complex could easily miss. So we are being pacified throughout our lives to run into adulthood so that we'll be disabled. We'll be less able to stand up and protect our tribes, talking about the males. Boys cannot become men. This leaves everyone vulnerable. We have been disabled to such an extent that the existence of a natural enemies and all hostility goes completely unnoticed. It cannot be stressed enough that the post-transhumanism, post-genderism, and all are part of one large plan. We are being made to hate ourselves. Many of our supposed faults are merely products of Madison Avenue. Wicked geniuses have sold us our depression, the same thing that the medical establishment tells us is our own genetic fault, problem, reaction, solution. This is the purpose of the entire process. We should understand that the psychological warfare has been waged upon us all, and we must fight to preserve our most basic human rights and, in fact, our very human identity. The natural world, of which we are all part of, is being done away with in favor of a complete false artifice. The dark masterpiece is the work of the enlightened visionaries. We are indeed living in an unbalanced power structure where men have been leading the way for a long time, for 6,000 years, and we have been overrun by the monopoly men. The aspects of human life where women are more naturally inclined to take leadership have been taken over. All right, so he goes on to talk about artificial wombs, which is really another critical subject we need to deal with. And again, they make it seem like the technology is super difficult and stuff, but there's a picture of an artificial room with a fetus fluid bag mimicking the wound, organs develop minimum exposure. And then they got all the computers and stuff, but this is not new technology. It's not something they don't know how to do. And again, cloning, they've been cloning for a very long time. And this is all part of the process. So, again, the will of God is the male, the father, and this is overcoming the mother nature. This is the male taking over the woman, becoming male, female, and I'm the will of God, and I created nature, so I'm going to be the dominant. This is also why they created Washington, D.C., and Washington, D.C. will be destroyed very shortly, and that's because it's the female principle. Isis sits on top of Washington, D.C. It's the feminine divine. It's manifest destiny. You see her floating across the West when the white man took over the natives. In Washington, D.C., the two states on each side are Virginia, Virgin, and Mary, Virgin Mary, Land. That's their creation. That's how long they've been doing this, and they will destroy it. And that's why Washington, D.C. has been under lockdown since that stupid event fake event, where they had months to get ready for, and somehow they surprised the Washington police on January 6th. And now they're in Trump's safe. Imagine that. All right, so the artificial womb, this is going to blow you away, how long they've been planning this. So, and J.B.S. Haldane coined the term ectogenesis in 1924, a word used to describe the birthing of humans within artificial wombs. This future technology was laid out to first mention. He saw ectogenesis as necessary for combating the high fertility levels of the less desirable members of the population. Doesn't that sound like Margaret Sanger and Gates and Rockefeller from Planned Parenthood? Should become as no surprise to ectogenesis and still is a eugenic product. It has long been the unwashed masses that were brought to be canceled out so the New Age utopia could be brought in. They got to get rid of the despicables. Remodeling human generation through the use of artificial wombs and reducing the amount of natural human births was the way to make up this scientific utopia. And just 5 years after that, in 1921, a very interesting article appeared in Cosmopolitan magazine written by the Earl of Birkenhead, an English aristocrat. He forecast what the world would be 100 years from now. So that's 1929, 2029. Like Bacon's New Atlantis, he clearly described technologies that had not been invented. The most interesting of the article had to do with the artificial womb. Quote, "It is possible, however, by 2029, the whole question of human heredity and eugenics will be swallowed up by the process of the ectogenetic birth. By intelligent combination of suitable genes, it will be possible to predict with reasonable certainty that truly brilliant children shall be born of a marriage. This is what eugenics is all about, perfecting the act of regeneration, and seeing all the inferiors disposed of intelligently. Who's deciding that? The very idea is being marketed to us today as a completely humane way of eliminating suffering, stupidity, and all the rest of our bad traits. The Earl of Birkenhead goes on to say, quote, the possibility of ectogenetic children will naturally arouse the fiercest antagonism. Religious bodies of many different creeds will rally their adherents to fight such a fundamental biological invention. No, they won't. They didn't fight COVID. They're not going to fight this. They can't give up their 501c3, their tax breaks. You're not going to see any religious bodies rise up. They would have by now. It's pathetic to see the religions rolling over to all this. Deeply pathetic. All right, so his lordship goes on to say about the ectogenesis, it will separate reproduction from marriage, and latter institution will become wholly changed. There are plenty of details in the paper. Reworking the social contract is a huge aspect. They talk about the social contract. Society itself is to be totally re-engineered. Human biology is made to tailor so that it fits the measurement of the great architect. He goes on, quote, further, the character of future inhabitants of any state could be determined by the government, which happened temporarily to enjoy the power. By regulating the choice of ectogenetic parents of the next generation, the cabinet of the future could breed a nation of industrious dullards or leaven the population with 50,000 charmingly irresponsible mural painters. He goes on. A further immediate consequence of ectogenesis would be the plea that society would be allowed to produce human types it most needs, instead of being forced to absorb all the unstable types which happen to come about. If it were possible to breed a race of strong, healthy creatures, intelligent to perform intricate drudgery, yet lacking all ambition, what ruling class would resist that temptation, i.e. intelligent slaves? And this is what the Anunnaki did when they came down here and they merged the horse with the human. And that's the beginning of the genesis, with the horse and the human and the falcon with the human. All of those were inbreds trying to get a smart horse to work harder, faster. And that's the centaur, and those were real. That's when the Anunnaki were down here. They're just playing genetics. And that's also the missing chromosome. The 15th chromosome between the humans and animals is called the missing chromosome. And that's what the Anunnaki tweaked way back then when they came here and took the gold they needed for their Earth, and then they put a dome on to watch what would happen if they gave man free will, and they set up our legal system, our government system, our education system back in the 1850s, 1870s, and then said, let's see what happens with free will and giving humans the ability to procreate. Like a big lab experiment. This could be a whole big lab experiment, folks. Hard to fathom, but... All right, so this is Birkenham said about you would better question the nature of the human enhancement now. You will not have the capacity of any kind in the future. Birkenhead said, quote, every impulse which makes slavery degrading and irksome to ordinary humanity would be removed from this mental equipment. Love your servitude. His only happiness would be in his task. He would be the exact human counterpart to the worker bee. And you know how they love their bees, and the perpetual bee hives and the singularity pops up again and again. And a large portion of the article written by Birkenhead is called the ectogenetic robot. It's far more likely that men will work as machine minders for 1 or 2 hours a day and be free to devote the rest of their energies to whatever activity they enjoy. Hooray for transhumanism. So a scientific age of reason upon us. And if you look at the Georgia Guidestones that just got taken down by design, they put in 4 different ancient languages, Sanskrit, what are the other languages? Cuneiform, hieroglyphics, and one other language. Let this be the age of reason, Thomas Paine. And here's why they did that. Because the scientific age of reason is upon us. Understand there's a direct purpose behind all this. The very word reason implies, quote, the artificial womb represents the completion of an even longer historic process that began nearly 400 years ago at the dawn of the scientific age. Anything else in here to look at? It is Sir Francis Bacon. Sir stands for slave in residence, so you know. Sir Michael Bloomberg, slave in residence. Sir Francis Bacon, slave in residence. The father of modern science referred to nature as the common harlot. He urged future generations to, quote, tame, squeeze, mold, and shape her so that man could become her master and the undisputed sovereign of the physical world. No doubt some will see the artificial womb as the final triumph of modern science. Others, the ultimate human folly. You know, you can read the document about what a marriage really is when you sign a certificate at your wedding. All right, so this is by Jeremy. This is still on artificial wombs. So Jeremy Rifkin, Cornell University, and a guy from Japan, somebody, Juntendo, compared the writings of Bacon. He's the president of the Foundation of Economic Trends in Washington, D.C. He's written books about this. And he's likely to see the widespread, he says the widespread use, I don't have a date on it, but likely to see the widespread use of artificial wombs within a generation. Most women would now be opposed to such things, but their expectations represent the dying sensibilities of the old order. Remember, they're bringing in the new world order. A new world order is emerging, and our psychological compliance is being manufactured slowly. It is expected that they will eventually break down and accept this new world order project by the time the actual infrastructure is in place, which is now. Remember, we wrote this in 2012, a decade ago. So ectogenesis, transhuman, and the postgenderism are all aspects of the brave new order that Aldous Huxley wrote about decades before. So Huxley's Brave World Order, as a model of an article, explains delivering, get it, delivering fertile promises which are centuries old to let their quest begin, so the general public is being made more tolerant. From the Harvard article, quote, so why has the relatively little attention been paid to research that could lead to a major change to reproductive capacity? In fact, much work goes unpublished because of the uproar it might create among activists, politicians, and religious figures. The vehement opposition to the artificial womb was spoken of by Birkenhead in 1929. So, however, these following this method, using public funds to work on the artificial wombs has been going on for decades. Cornell gets its money, much of its grant money, from the National Science Foundation, so you know they're going to be doing it underground. And their crypto-eugenic research, whether you like it or not, is going to continue. A scientific technocracy is slowly rising to complete power. Specialization makes it difficult for many of those well-meaning scientists working on these projects to understand the much bigger picture, just like 901. So if the Harvard article goes to the declaring point, it coldly lays out logical methods for creating and implementing artificial wombs. And this is from the book Beyond Imagining New World Orders. There are some pragmatic reasons why artificial wombs might be employed. So the date on this, Colleen Carlson, Harvard Science Review, fall 2008. Then the New World Order pushes out through their IEET paper on postgenderism that artificial wombs will be safer for mothers. They won't have to leave their careers, work, and of course a host of other eugenic corrections on reckless motherhood will follow. In the name of safety, it's all for your safety, artificial wombs will be used to ensure that bad mothers, you're a bad mother in the womb, don't taint the fetal development of their children by consuming drugs or alcohol. For your own protection, we're gonna host your child in a fetus, an artificial fetus, for your own good. You might get the baby, we don't know yet. This added safety will tie into the medical insurance industry. Insurance companies will promote the use of artificial wombs by giving them benefits to those who opt to use them. This is the wonderfully safe and secure new world order that we're stepping into. And according to the public-private partnership, it's all about safety to keep the children safe. This is how they're creating the nanny state. It's the new family structure of the new world order. So this is from Making Babies Over the Next 30 Years by Helen Pearson, about the overburdening aspects of carrying a child in the womb. It's overburdening. There are around 1 million abortions per year in the United States. And this is why they're bringing up the abortions now, folks. This is exactly why they're doing it. There are around 1 million abortions per year in the United States, and there would have to be if labs throughout the country. We could put all these in artificial wombs and then put them for adoption. How about putting them in Child Protection Services? How about putting them out there for Epstein Island? How about putting them so they can draw their adrenochrome out of them? Huh? How about all that? There'd be 1 million more babies. And this is what I continually ask the Christian pro-life movement. And those of you that are pro-life, I get it. It is life in the body. But again, what are you going to do with all the babies that are going to be born? Where's the plan for all the babies being born? I adopted a child. It cost a lot of money and took a lot of time legally. Why aren't you making it easier to adopt if you're going to let so many more babies and ban abortions? Come on, let's see the plan. And while I'm picking on Christians, how come you're not throwing over the bankers' tables and getting crucified? What would Jesus do? He threw over the bankers' tables because they were hurting the people. Hello, Christians throwing over bankers' tables, getting crucified? No, I'll pray for you, though. All right, so enough pontificating. So back to the book. The Harvard article mentions a quote from Regine Sturkaware, a reproductive endocrinologist at Population Council of New York. Don't have to know, but I almost guarantee you, funded by the Rockefellers. If we look at the Centers of Reproductive Scientists funded by the National Institutes of Health, there are more than 20 in vitros and only a handful of contraceptive research. But we need to have a balance. And then going on, the future of sex, the idea of completely transcending our male-female genders is being promoted. The idea is coming from, quote, individuals who seek a more perfect union of man and women through chemical marriage. Gender singularity is now within the realm of possibility. I do? I don't? Am I marrying me? I now pronounce you man and man, man and wife, man wife, man wife, wife man. Do you have any idea how monumental this is? You know how gross this is, how completely changing of humanity is. And everybody that's been shot has their blood tainted. We need to start blood banks. You need to get a hold of pathologists and learn how to save untainted, pure blood. It's going to be very, very important. So this gender bending today has left the youth bombarded with so much shocking and sexually explicit stimuli, they now suffer from a serious condition. Naturally, many have been confused sexually. Many have lost their reverence for sexuality. Its divine nature has been debased, and correspondingly, we have all been degraded. True that. And this, to me, is one of the biggest problems we have, yet I don't see the parents speaking out about this because they're participating. See, you're not going to go down on your child and tell them not to watch it, even though they can get access to it for free. Why are they being allowed to access it? Where's the... We have to provide the preventative measures, and they go over to a neighbor's house and they can see it all they want. 87% of men watch it weekly, 30%, 20% of all searches. And the women here in the United States is the worst of the worst by a factor of huge. Totally debasing the feminine divine, totally debasing what it means to be a man and a woman. And the other thing, too, is this has been going on for so long. I mean, when I was in high school, you know, you went out on a date or something, and the first thing your buddies asked you was, quote, did you get any? Did you get any? And I think about that now, and I go, how debasing that is to the feminine divine. And the ladies, did you get lucky? Did you get anybody? They're just totally and completely objectified. Now I know why and how, and now it's being brought to a whole level where they're taking away and going to eliminate, and are actively eliminating what it means to be the feminine, what it means to be a lady, the mother nature, nurture, the creator of life, the womb. Men can't create life. Men are a seed. We shoot it. Women, you're the hosts. You're the life bearers. Reclaim the feminine divine is critical now. And then they make it available. You know, they could track them. They could put it away. Nobody's gotten to jail from Epstein Island. Maxwell Glasswell, the big trial. You know, Ghislaine Maxwell, nobody went to jail. No names. All of them never frog marched. Trump, all of them. Clinton, all of them, all the actors, all going to the island to abuse children. But this is all, you know, part of the child abuse about going through and saying, well, just I was watching porn and I got into child abuse, I got into children and whatnot. Again, this is something being caused, yet on my YouTube channel, every time I post something on the YouTube channel, the first 2 or 3 comments are porn sites. Not child, but I clicked on one, but I mean, this happens to me every single time I post. They could clean it up if they want. They don't. They want this to become normalized. They want your children to be sexually confused and post-gender. No male, no female. So finishing up here from Mr. Franz's excellent book, page 182. Just think about the 1950s America attitudes towards sex. Conservative view was contrasted by a steady erosion of old taboos. I remember in the early 60s, if somebody got divorced, it was extremely rare. No one got divorced. The sex act itself was coupled with a set of strict guidelines. No one was to do it without first going through the legal process of marriage. The institution of marriage itself may be understood as nothing more than a social legal contract, but it was considered that you waited till you got married. Anyone deviating from the social norm of the day was to feel great shame and shunned by civilization. Young adults sought out ways of liberating themselves from the frustrating situation because they were ashamed to have feelings fueled by the rebellion in young hearts. The old cliche of rock and roll's corruptive influence is certainly true. So the sexual revolution of the 1960s, free love, take a pill, pop it, pass it out, free love, just spend the night together, I just need you tonight, one night, don't leave me lonely tonight. It's all about just one-nighters, folks, all the songs. I got you, babe, and then demeaning, and then the flower-powered orgies, anything goes. Sex itself associated with pure recreation, not recreation. Recreation, recreation, same word, different meaning. The concept of casual sex was explicitly promoted in the 1990s. The propaganda campaign was seen a barrage of popular cultures. Casual sex was promoted. We are now in serious trouble. The fact that people would never have accepted any of this 100 years ago, 30 years ago, it's not because of primitive savages. Do you remember Al Gore's wife getting on talking about some of the language that was being used in rock and roll was promiscuous, and they banned some of the songs back then because they didn't think it was appropriate for children? I do. So this has all been based on the political correctness, chemical warfare. The wolves in sheep clothing have been sent out to pacify us all. Psychological warfare has been waged, and we don't even realize it. This is again from the IET document. The paper describes in detail how virtual sex has already softened us up, but it obviously isn't described as such. The typical positive spin given electronic sex is that it's safer, easier, more convenient, and completely tailored to individual desires. Say what? July 2022, Las Vegas hotels offer first ever, quote, virtual porn delivery robots as part of room service. Cannot make this crap up. Again, from the IET document, the growing sophistication of AI and robotics that detect human emotion, anticipate human desires, and respond in ways that simulate a human response will also speed the virtualization of sex. Postgenderists and transhumanists sincerely wish to see the complete and total destruction of the male-female relationships. All right, so this needed to be said. This needed to get out there. Look at this picture, folks. This is the Daily Star, United Kingdom. I mean, porn bots. Oh, God. It's coming to this. So we need to get our babies. We need to speak to them truth. We need to talk about birds and the bees. We need to control them. We need to get their blood, keep their blood purified. We need to get them off the internet. We need to block access to these porn sites and whatnot. And then just get a whole idea. If you want to get this book, I highly recommend it. That gets more into this post-genderism and these artificial womb bots and the end of the feminine divine, the end of Mother Nature. As the male principle, the nature's work, or the father, takes over everything and takes over the feminine divine as well and absorbs it into their androgynous AI scheme of things that they've been planning, Agenda 2021, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2045. All part of this time exactly right now. We need to protect our babies. Not a lot of people are going to get what I just presented here, but hopefully you do. Sorry if I was a little bit rough on some of the religions here, but religion, religare, means to reconnect with. Spirit means connecting, a connection. Esperare, to breathe. Before the word, there was the breath. Before the breath, there was the idea, the creative concept of feminine. This is where we lose our creativity, folks. Peace and love, you all. Let the feminine divine rise to her rightful state in the creative process for all time, for all ladies, for all feminine divine, and the future of all. Peace and love.